Imagine getting pulled over for no reason, and then a cop plants drugs in your car to send you to prison. But what happens when the man he targets isn't just any driver, but the director of the FBI himself? Stick around, because this story will shock you. It was a quiet evening in Washington, D.C. The city was alive but calm, with the hum of traffic echoing against towering buildings. Streetlights glowed amber along the wide boulevard, casting long shadows across sidewalks where few pedestrians hurried home. The September air carried a cool breeze, mingling with the faint scent of food from nearby restaurants. A sleek black luxury sedan glided down the road, its tinted windows reflecting the city's neon signs. Inside sat a tall, composed black man in his late 40s. His sharp jawline, steady eyes, and polished appearance gave him an air of quiet authority. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, a silk tie neatly fastened at his collar, and a wristwatch that gleamed subtly in the passing light. To anyone who noticed him, he looked like a successful executive, someone who had worked hard and earned every bit of respect he carried. But not everyone saw him that way. A few blocks down, hidden behind a row of parked cars, sat Officer Derek Simmons in his squad car. His arms rested lazily on the steering wheel, his eyes locked on the passing vehicles. Derek was no ordinary cop. He was known within the precinct for his arrogance, his temper, and his creative methods of law enforcement. On paper, he was just another officer doing his duty. But in reality, Derek had built a reputation on corruption. For months, he had been running his own dirty little side hustle, framing innocent drivers, mostly minorities, by planting drugs in their cars. After the arrest, Derek would often offer them a deal, pay him under the table, and the evidence might just disappear. For those who couldn't pay, prison awaited. It was easy money, and no one had yet dared to challenge him. That night, Derek's eyes narrowed as the black sedan approached. He didn't see a respectable man heading home. He didn't see a leader, a father, or a citizen with rights. He only saw an opportunity. Perfect, Derek muttered under his breath, a crooked grin spreading across his face. Another one who thinks he's above the law. His hand reached for the switch, and with a flick, red and blue lights blazed alive on his squad car. The piercing wail of the siren cut through the night, echoing off the glass windows of nearby shops. The luxury sedan slowed, its brake lights glowing red before it carefully pulled to the side of the road. The driver's calm demeanor remained unchanged. He didn't panic, didn't fumble. Instead, he placed both hands on the steering wheel, waiting patiently, as if he had been through this all too many times before. Officer Simmons straightened his uniform, adjusted his belt, and stepped out of the squad car. His boots hit the pavement with heavy, confident steps as he approached the sedan. He carried himself like a man in complete control, like someone who thought the world was his playground. But what Derek Simmons didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that tonight he had just chosen the wrong target. The black sedan's tinted window slid down slowly, revealing the calm face of the man inside. His expression was unreadable, his eyes sharp but steady, his posture perfectly composed. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a deep resonance that demanded attention without raising in volume. "Officer," he said evenly, "is there a problem?" Derek Simmons leaned closer, resting one hand on the car roof and smirking. His badge gleamed in the streetlight, but behind that badge was arrogance, not honor. "License and registration," Derek replied casually, though his eyes glinted with malice. "You were driving suspiciously." The man didn't argue. Without hesitation, he reached into the glove compartment, retrieved his documents, and handed them over. There was no trembling in his fingers, no rush to defend himself. His demeanor wasn't nervous, it was patient, almost too patient, as though he had seen this routine before, as though this wasn't his first time being profiled. Derek flipped through the documents but wasn't reading them. His mind was already made up. This wasn't about a broken law. It was about power, and he wanted to show who held it. He crouched slightly, pretending to peer deeper into the vehicle. "Been drinking tonight? Maybe carrying something you shouldn't?" The man simply raised an eyebrow. "Everything in this car is legal, officer." That was the moment Derek decided to act. While the driver's attention was on his question, Derek's other hand slipped swiftly to his pocket. He pulled out a small plastic bag filled with a white powdery substance, his insurance policy. With practiced ease, he leaned just slightly into the vehicle and slid the bag under the driver's seat. His pulse quickened with excitement. Another easy bust. Another chance to play judge, jury, and executioner. Minutes later, Derek stood tall, holding up the incriminating bag as though he had just discovered buried treasure. His voice carried a mocking tone, dripping with fake disappointment. Well, he said, shaking his head with exaggerated dismay. Looks like we've got ourselves a problem here. Care to explain the drugs in your car? The man didn't flinch. His calm eyes met Derek's directly, unwavering and steady. There was no fear in his gaze, only a measured patience, as though he was giving the officer one last chance to choose wisely. Are you sure, the man asked softly, his voice calm but firm, that you want to go down this road, officer? Derek barked out a laugh, trying to mask the sudden chill creeping up his spine. Oh, I'm sure, he sneered, stepping back with false confidence. You're going to jail tonight. End of the line for you. He couldn't see it, but the man's grip on the steering wheel tightened ever so slightly. His silence carried weight, like a storm waiting to break. Derek thought he had just claimed another victim, but in reality, he had just stepped into the biggest trap of his life. Just as Derek Simmons reached for his handcuffs, savoring the moment of triumph, the driver moved with deliberate calm. He reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a sleek leather wallet. With one smooth motion, he flipped it open. The golden emblem inside caught the streetlight, gleaming like fire in the night. Derek froze. It wasn't just any badge. It was the unmistakable shield of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm Director James Carter, head of the FBI, the man said firmly, his deep voice slicing through the silence. His eyes never blinked, never wavered. And you, Officer Simmons, just committed a federal crime. For the first time that night, Derek's smug grin faltered. His throat went dry, and the hand clutching his cuffs trembled. He tried to laugh, but came out uneven. FFBI? No, this has to be some kind of joke, he stammered. His confidence was crumbling with every passing second. Director Carter leaned slightly out of the car window, his face just inches away from Derek's. His voice dropped to a cold whisper that carried more weight than any shout. Do I look like I'm joking? The silence that followed was deafening. Derek's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Sweat gathered at his temple, and his bravado drained away like water through a sieve. And then, as if to punctuate Carter's words, the night air was split by the sound of engines. Two black SUVs, unmarked but unmistakably federal, rolled up behind Derek's cruiser. Their headlights cut through the darkness like spotlights. The doors opened in perfect synchronization. Out stepped men in tailored black suits, their movements sharp, disciplined. Each one carried a sidearm, holstered but visible, and wore the signature earpieces that screamed federal authority. Derek's eyes darted between them in panic. The quiet street that moments ago had been his stage now looked like the set of a high-stakes operation. He wasn't a hunter anymore. He was the prey. One of the agents spoke in his wrist mic. Director, we've got your signal. Do you want us to proceed? Carter finally stepped out of his car, towering over Derek with calm, unshakable authority. He straightened his suit jacket before speaking, his tone steady and commanding. Proceed. In an instant, the agents closed in. Their formation was flawless, their presence suffocating. Derek instinctively took a step back, his hands trembling as his excuses tumbled out in desperation. Wait, I didn't know. I didn't mean it. The drugs, they weren't mine, I swear. This was a mistake, just a misunderstanding. But Carter's glare silenced him. The FBI director spoke with a weight of final judgment. Tonight, Officer Simmons, you didn't just break the law. You exposed yourself for exactly what you are. And now, the law will deal with you. The cuffs Derek had once intended for another now closed tightly around his own wrists. And the street, once Derek's playground, had become the stage for his downfall. The agents fanned out in a practice formation, their weapons trained and their voices sharp. Drop your weapon, Officer Simmons, one commanded. Derek froze, his hand hovering near his holster. His instinct screamed to defend himself, but he knew one wrong move and he wouldn't live to regret it. His weapon clattered to the ground, the metallic echo bouncing across the empty street. His breathing grew heavy. His usual confidence had evaporated, replaced by raw panic. He lifted his hands in surrender, words tumbling out of his mouth like a broken faucet. I didn't know. You have to believe me. It was just a mistake. The drugs, they weren't mine. I swear, I was only doing my job. But Director James Carter stepped forward, his face carved with stone-like resolve. His voice rang out, deep and cutting. Enough. The single word silenced Derek's protests. Carter's eyes burned with controlled anger, but his tone remained steady, almost colder than the night air. We've been watching you for months, Simmons, Carter continued. Every false arrest, every life you destroyed, every dime you extorted under the cover of your badge. We have it all. Derek's knees wobbled. No, you don't understand. You were just abusing the trust this country gave you, Carter interrupted. You wore the uniform not to serve, but to exploit. And tonight, Carter's gaze sharpened. You made the biggest mistake of your life. You tried it on the wrong person. Two agents stepped forward, seizing Derek by the arms. The cold bite of steel closed around his wrists as handcuffs clicked into place. The same cuffs he had so carelessly slapped on countless innocent victims. This time, they locked around him with finality. You have the right to remain silent, one agent recited. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Derek thrashed weakly, his voice cracking as he pleaded. Please, I've got a family. I can explain. Just give me one more chance. But his cries fell flat. To the agents, to Director Carter, to the justice system he had mocked for years, his words meant nothing now. As Derek was pushed toward one of the waiting SUVs, Carter stood tall under the glow of the streetlights. His expression was firm, his presence commanding. He didn't look at Derek with hatred, but with a grim sense of duty. To Carter, this wasn't just another arrest. It was a message. Every time a cop like you abuses power, Carter said, his voice loud enough for Derek and every agent present to hear, it makes the entire system weaker. People lose faith. Communities lose trust. Good officers pay the price for your corruption. That ends tonight. The agents exchanged looks of respect. This wasn't just the director of the FBI speaking. It was a leader reminding them why they wore the badge in the first place. And as Derek was shoved in the back of the SUV, his head hanging in defeat, the balance of power had shifted. The predator had become the prey. The next morning, America woke up to a headline that seemed almost too shocking to be true. Corrupt cop arrested after planting drugs in FBI director's car. The story spread like wildfire. News anchors replayed the events again and again, narrating the downfall of Officer Derek Simmons with a mixture of disbelief and outrage. Clips of flashing sirens, grainy cell phone footage from bystanders, and the FBI's official statement filled every news cycle. For millions watching, it was more than just a scandal. It was poetic justice. On social media, hashtags trended within hours. Justice served, no one above the law, FBI sting. Memes, commentary, and videos dissecting every detail of the case flooded the internet. Some users cheered, calling it karma in action. Others were sobered, pointing out how many innocent people had likely suffered at Simmons's hands before he was finally caught. Across the country, conversations unfolded in living rooms, workplaces, and classrooms. Parents told their children about fairness and accountability. Communities that had long felt voiceless finally saw a glimmer of hope, that corruption could be challenged and that justice was possible, even against those in uniform. Later that afternoon, cameras flashed as Director James Carter stepped onto the podium at a press conference. The crowd hushed instantly. He wasn't just the man at the center of the story. He was the voice of authority, integrity, and justice. Carter stood tall, his suit immaculate, his face calm yet resolute. He spoke slowly, deliberately, ensuring that every word carried weight. No one is above the law, Carter began, his tone firm. Not even those sworn to uphold it. A badge is not a shield for corruption. It is a promise to protect and serve. And when that promise is broken, accountability must follow. The room was silent. Every journalist leaning forward to capture his words. Corruption hides in shadows, he continued. But when exposed, it crumbles. Officer Simmons believed he could intimidate, manipulate, and destroy lives without consequence. But let this serve as a reminder. Justice has a way of finding its path. Always. As Carter stepped back from the microphone, the audience erupted in applause. Reporters shouted questions, flashbulbs popped, and yet the director's message lingered above the noise. Clear, unwavering, unforgettable. Meanwhile, miles away, Derek Simmons sat alone in a cold prison cell. His badge, once his symbol of power, had been stripped away. His gun, his authority, his swagger gone. For the first time in his career, he was the one on the other side of the bars. The silence of his cell was deafening, broken only by the echo of his own mistakes. The irony was undeniable. The handcuffs he had so carelessly locked on innocent wrists now bound his own. The system he thought he could exploit had turned against him. And as the world moved on, one truth remained carved into the story forever. Abusing authority always comes with a price. And that was today's story. If you found it powerful and thought-provoking, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and click subscribe so you never miss more stories like this. Your support helps us bring more real, inspiring, and eye-opening content straight to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.